Welcome to Stop the Noise, where small business specialists cut through the clutter to hone in on practical things small business owners can do to solve business challenges and move their business forward. In today's episode, hosts Better Business for Good co-founder Brenda Thompson and Katie Patterson from Katie Patterson Consulting are talking with recruitment specialist Bobby Semple from Simplified Recruitment Solutions and HR specialist Jessie Warren from HR Gurus about recruitment non-negotiables, what small businesses need to know. Jessie, I might get you to kick off if that's okay. Can you tell us, that we're hearing all the time about this great resignation thing. Can you tell us about the job market at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely, Brenda. I would say, you know how they were saying COVID is unprecedented times. I think that the candidate market, the job market, we're also experiencing unprecedented times. The unemployment rate is at the lowest it's been at since the 70s in Australia, and which is a great thing. But if you're looking for great candidates, it's really dry out there. And we have a saying in HR land that it's a name your price market, because there's so few quality good candidates. It's really hard to fill positions.
Bobby, have you got anything to add to that? Is that all COVID, or are there other factors that you think have contributed to that?
Yeah, there's multiple things that are going on right now in Australia. We don't have the tourists that we used to have. We don't have people coming on working holiday visas. We don't have people coming in from who are Australians who've worked in the UK for 4 years. They're coming back with their new British partner coming. So there's all these people that we're missing out in the country, which really are the foundation of hospitality, places like that are really finding it tough because we don't have the students coming in. We don't have people on working holiday visas where they can work for 6 months at a time, etc. So it really makes the market really dry. And also people have taken this time over the last year, 2 years to reevaluate what life is about. And some people don't want to go and work like they used to go and work. And they're looking for better options. They're looking for new industries. And so there's lots of opportunities out there for not only just candidates, but for also people looking to recruit, to really change the way that they kind of hire people and the kind of people they hire as well.
So that probably leads into the next question I had here is what are companies doing to be more attractive, to actually cut through that and get the employees they want?
Yeah, so what we find as a recruitment business, the clients who offer work remotely, if you can work remotely from anywhere in Australia, then your catchment area is really all of Australia, which is obviously massive. When we compare that to 2-3 years ago, a traditional worker would travel 30 to 40 Ks sometimes to go to work. Well, that catchment area is now 15 Ks. So if you're looking to hire someone, say in Cheltenham in Victoria, well, you're looking 15 Ks away from that office is your catchment area now. People aren't going to travel as far as they wanted to. So if you're really struggling to find people and you're not offering remote work, it's not going to get any easier for you until we see more people come back into the country.
Do you think that will change back, or do you think that's something that we might be facing in the long term with people having different work expectations?
I think once we start to see like working holiday visas coming in, people on sponsorships, etc., they come into the country, we're going to see those guys take up these lower paid kind of roles. But it's also going to push people to go and find something. They've got to go and do something. They've got to go and find a job. So it's not doom and gloom for the employer, because at some point people are going to run out of money and they're going to have to go and get a job. So once that we start to see people come in and take these jobs, and we see less and less jobs being advertised, it's really going to push the people who have been waiting for that ideal job to finally turn around and go, I'm going to have to go and take a job that I didn't really want to have to take because I've been too picky, because I think that the world owes me all this money, the working location that I want, etc. So for the short term, next 6 to 8 months, maybe even a year, we're going to see that. But as soon as we start to see more and more people come into the country, it's going to start to ease those pains, the worrying pains for the hiring company anyway.
So go on, Katie.
Oh, thanks, Brenda. So adding on to that, Bobby and Jess, do you think people overseas would be offered that remote work as well? If we were living in Fiji, example.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it all depends on the industry, and it all depends on whether you have to be working at Australian time. And as long as the outsourced person, whether it's in wherever, Philippines or UK, as long as they're willing to work 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, but in Australian time, the UK, that means you're going to work through the night. So there's definitely opportunity. And as long as the business is willing to bring those people in, then really your catchment area is the whole of the world, which
it's
means
global,
which means you've got, you pick of the talent, but it's finding the right employer who's willing to do that. And obviously the position has got to be able to work remotely, and the company's got to have processes and systems in place. And I've spoken to several businesses over the last 2 years who didn't put anything in place to work remotely over that time, which is crazy when you think about it. So they're really kind of stuck now because all their people are leaving because they've had a terrible 2 years, and they can't attract anybody because they're saying you've got to come to the office. So you have to really be within this certain area, which then kind of limits the talent pool.
Yeah. So, Jessie, did you want to add to that about what advice you have for employers who are recruiting in this landscape, just in a general sense, before we get into that checklist?
Yeah, well, I would say that, the last 2 years have been a bit of an experiment for so many workplaces. And one of the beautiful things about it is that it has changed the way that we work, and it's changed a lot of mindsets around flexible work, remote working, and, it's opening people up to amazing opportunities like being, they never thought they would be able to outsource to anywhere. And now they're like, actually, we can do that. So my advice would be, open your mind a little bit more and see if you can't be flexible, where can you be flexible? What can you offer that makes you stand out from, other people recruiting for the same position? What makes you different and special, and what can you offer? If you're a small business, maybe you're able to be a little bit more flexible than some of the bigger players. That might be, what you can offer. So just think outside the box. That would be my advice.
I love that. That makes me think of something that I like when people go, oh, that won't work. Well, instead of saying that won't work, let's look at how could we make that work?
Yeah.
And really being willing to be innovative and think outside the box. Yeah, I love that.
So can I add a question to that, either Jess or Bobby or both of you, is that when you talk about, Bobby, you mentioned the 9 to 5 if they live in the Philippines, an example. Does it really have to be those working hours? Can't that be as flexible as well, given that job role?
I suppose it depends on the employer's client. If the employer's client is 9 to 5 in Australia time, then they're going to have to be the same timeline. If it's like an admin role where there's no time difference because it doesn't matter if you get the report back at 9 o'clock today or 9 o'clock tomorrow, then it doesn't matter. But if you are going to be client facing, making client calls, then you can't be calling at 8, 9 o'clock at night. So you've got to be calling between 9 and 5. So it really just depends on the industry of where that flexibility can come in.
Okay, so I think that probably, unless Jessie or Katie or Bobby want to add anything up, that probably kind of wraps up the overview. So how about we actually dig into that checklist and go through, I think it's 8 things we've got on the list. So here's 8 specific things that you can do in order to be competitive in this job market. Okay, so let me get my checklist out. So first off is about where you're advertising, and what you had here, Bobby, was you're advertising on LinkedIn and Seek. Now, my instant question over and above that is it always LinkedIn and Seek, or really is it about finding the right place for where your candidates are hanging out? So do you want to just talk us through what that really looks like for an employer who needs to find the right person?
Okay, so there are 2 differences between job boards, not just Seek, but we just say job boards in general, and the way that we advertise on LinkedIn. We don't really use the job board of LinkedIn. We actually advertise it in the feeds of the target market that we're trying to attract. So Seek and job boards like that are great for someone who's actively looking for work. So they want to leave their employer or they need a job and they're going to go and see what's available. The good thing about using LinkedIn, the way we use it, is that people will be on LinkedIn scrolling through their feed. They're going to see our job advertised for X client, and they might go, I'm not looking for a job, but that's around the corner from my house. It's better location, better pay, etc. So you're targeting two markets. One is people who are actively looking, and the other one is targeting people who aren't actively looking. So it can pay off by doing that, because you're really targeting every market that you can. So you are right, not every person is going to be on LinkedIn that you're going to need to target. If you're talking hospitality, etc., the chances are very slim. But you can do the same thing on Facebook and Instagram.
I was about to ask that, because that's that whole other more B2C market is hanging out.
That's exactly right. And, we know that Facebook have a lot of data, and we can actually drill down into people who have hobbies. Maybe we were looking for real estate people, so we might find someone who has a hobby of renovating a house or buying houses. And so they could be a good real estate agent because they already have the knowledge. They're just going to be taught like the license stuff and et cetera, et cetera. But we can put an advert in front of those people on their feed, so it goes directly to them. They're not looking for a job. They're not going on to Seek, but they're seeing it on Facebook. So obviously, if you think about any industry where you're sat on a laptop or a computer, they're going to be really good jobs to advertise on LinkedIn, because in theory, they're going to be sat on a screen. Whereas if you talk about real estate, let's talk about property managers, they're always out and about, they're always doing something, they're not sat behind a computer, they probably don't go on LinkedIn that often. So if your candidate that you want to attract is going to be sat on a computer, then the chances are they're going to be on LinkedIn at some point, and there's more chance of them seeing the advert on LinkedIn than they are if they're going to go on Seek because they're not looking for a job.
Right. That's really, it puts a whole different dimension on it when you go from where people are looking for jobs to where you can attract somebody who wasn't even thinking about it right now.
One of the biggest things I say to clients is we have to try and find out where these people hang out. So if you're looking for someone 16 to 22, I'd be going to put a poster in all the cricket clubs, football clubs, soccer clubs, because that's where those people are going to go and see it. They might not necessarily be looking for a job on Seek, but they're going to go to that place, and there's going to be multiple people who are going to see it. So if we're looking for an IT person, let's go and find out where those people hang out, and go and find out where they hang out online, and let's go and put some adverts in front of them.
So can I ask a question? Sorry.
Go. I was just going to say that's marketing 101, isn't it? Go where your ideal clients are hanging out. Sorry, Katie.
No, I think that's brilliant. So the other question that I have for you two experts is, what about things like, we were talking about people only looking at working 15 k's away, even though it might be flexible, or those things. What about your community boards, your job boards and Facebook and Seek, or schools? Schools have usually career counsellors and those kind of things. That may also work, would it not?
Yeah, all great options. The only risk with Facebook is just the rules and regulations of what you're allowed to post in the community. Like, say if you talk about Cheltenham in Victoria as an example, they might say you're not allowed to put this kind of advert up. But yeah, those are the places you want to go to. And yeah, schools are great, especially if you're looking for that kind of age group. Why not? And it's all about putting something in front of someone. If you're just sat there and it's just only in one place, then the chances are very slim. So it's just trying to put it in across as many places where they're going to see it.
Okay.
Thank
Then
you.
the next question I had here was about researching the market rates for the role, which are obviously now going to be looking kind of distorted when it was, I think, Jessie who said they can name their price. So how do you do that research on market rates for the role? How do you actually figure that out?
Yeah, so clients ask this all the time. They're kind of like, what should we pay, etc. Like 2 years ago, above award rate, which meant really like 20 cents above award rate. But it used to be fine. But now when people say, what should we offer? I say, we have to look on Seek. It's not what the minimum wage used to be, it's what your competitor is offering. So many times we put a job advert on Seek and we'll see above us someone paying $80,000, someone below us paying $90,000, and our client is paying $60,000. So straight away, there's no way that you're going to get applicants. Why would you? It's the same location, same job, same everything, and they're paying more. And so it's really kind of looking at what your competitors are doing for the candidate competitors, and then offering that. Gone are those days where it's, this is what we do, you should come and work for us. The candidates are going to see that there's better options and go and apply for those positions, not yours.
It's marketing 101 again. Then I'm going to throw this next question at you, Jessie, which is that, are you willing to be flexible with the skills and experience of the person? And I guess I'm throwing that one at you because that's really all about what they're going to be able to do once they've arrived. And so do you want to talk us through that flexibility about skills and experience?
Yeah, so again, like I was saying before, it's about thinking outside of the box. So rather than, having a strict list of criteria, it's understanding what are those transferable skills that could be used. So, there's less, they have to have this qualification. If you can skill them up and they've done something similar in another industry, they might be really good at that role. So it's about being less fixed in what you're looking for. And that's what we mean by, in terms of, being flexible with the skills and experience. Do they really have to have 5 years minimum, or would you be open to 3? Or less than, even 12 months in the industry? Can you do that and give them the appropriate training so that they will eventually get up to that level? Or is it a must have? And why is it a must have? You just have to be a lot more flexible in this market about what you're going to accept.
And then come back to that thing about culture and values fit as being, people can acquire skills, they don't change their core values.
Yeah. You can't train an attitude, right?
You can't change an attitude. Yeah, absolutely.
You can't train an attitude.
Yeah. So you might want those things to be in your essentials and the skills and the qualifications to be in your kind of, I'll be flexible about those for the right person.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen a lot of fails on culture fit. So that's probably the most important thing, is making sure always that it's going to be a culture fit, because otherwise they're not going to last that long anyway, right?
And you'll have gone through that whole expensive process for nothing. Yes. Yeah. So no matter how tight the market, never compromise on culture fit. Is that the hint?
Well, here's a crazy question about culture fit. If the person is working remotely and never going to really be in an office and be around people, does it matter? So that's a different question to ask yourself, because does it really matter now if I'm working remotely? Do I need to have that same culture?
And I guess that's about what are the values that are inherent in that culture. Because if it's things like showing initiative and strong communication skills, those are super important, I would have thought, in a remote working environment.
Yeah,
But I would argue that, Bobby. So he and Jess, I would argue that, because don't you need it more? Because it is remote.
Well, I would say, in terms of communication skills, you absolutely need it. So even though the person may be working remotely, if you've got that really poor communication or aggressive, or it doesn't match your culture, they can probably do more damage than good, really. Especially because they haven't built that face-to-face rapport. I agree with you, Katie. I think it's even more important to have a good culture fit.
So,
and I guess what's popped into my mind is it's about looking at what aspects of your culture were really core to your culture, and whether you may have had a culture that meant suit and tie coming into the office, and did that really matter in any sense whatsoever when you actually start and look at which were the parts of your culture that were really intensely values driven, and which were because they just happened to be, you think?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Like, I remember the suit thing. Like, but in the UK, I always wore a suit, shirt, and tie. That was just the way that we were in business and everything. And when I came here, my first job, turned up with a suit and tie, and I was just the only person out of 250 people. So, soon change that, because of that's the way that things to fit in better and not to stand out so much. But I think there's so many different components to a business as a whole, and does having a really good culture make a difference to everybody? Like, for me, when I was working in an office, I was probably a bit more inside. Like, I was closed off. I like to just work and get stuff done. I didn't want to go to events. Didn't want to make friends with people. Didn't want to catch up with people outside. And so, but we were forced to do it because it was the culture of the business, because we're in the office.
Yeah. So was that not a culture fit for you, perhaps?
It just meant that I just didn't participate in that. Yeah. But I had to make a decision and tell them that decision. Whereas if I work remotely, I don't have to be bought into that. So I suppose it all depends on your employees and what they're doing, you know, and obviously at certain levels, you probably need a bit more interaction, and the culture matters more if you're kind of like face-to-face, if you're in an office. That's just like from my experience, but it's different.
I think we've probably got a whole nother webinar on culture. That would be absolutely fascinating. So let's get back to
Sorry, I want to ask
back to
one
our
question.
advertising process. Sorry, Katie.
Sorry, I want to ask one question, if I may.
Go on.
Is that, isn't it, if you layer on the generational expectations, then you need to really sort out your culture.
We'll leave that for our culture.
I'll just put that out there.
I'll just put that out there.
I think that's
I'll just put it out there, and I'll just leave.
Yeah, leave that floating, shall we?
Yeah, that is a whole webinar, Katie.
I think that one's going to be, I think that could be a hot debating one. So I'm going to come back, Bobby, to you with some processy things here. And these are, first of all, you have the ability to communicate instantly with candidates, or you can outsource that process. So you can't be leaving candidates, you know, go on, tell us about what you need to have in place to manage this process.
So if we go back 2-3 years ago, my process in recruitment would be I'd get a good shortlist of candidates from a maybe 2 or 3 advertising campaign, wait for them to come in, then sit there and work them out, which is going to be good. Am I going to call this person or not? Those days are gone. You can't do that. The candidates are applying for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different jobs at a time. They're going for that many interviews, and they're also getting offers and offers and offers because it's such a competitive market. So literally, you've got to be watching as the applicant comes in. You've got to be looking at your email, making contact with that person to take them down the process that you have, whether that's a phone interview or calling them to come in for an face-to-face interview. If you don't do that, that someone else is. So it's really important that if you see a candidate and it's 50%, you know, they're only 50% of what you want, touch base with them, because that might be the best person you're going to get. And if you don't, they're going to get an offer.
Gone.
Yeah, they're gone.
Yeah. You have to be so responsive, because they're not going to wait 4 weeks, 6 weeks, even 2 weeks. So when you see the good ones, get straight onto it.
Yeah.
We've
had. Go on, Bobby. Sorry.
No, so we've made offers to people. They've accepted them, and then the next day they've called up and said, "Oh, we've had another offer that's $10,000 more. I'm going to take that." Yeah. And it makes me laugh because years ago, like 2 years, 3 years ago, everyone would complain about clients doing the same thing, like just ghosting candidates. But now it's the other way. Like candidates are ghosting clients, and the client will turn around and say, "Oh, I don't want to speak to that person ever again." I'm like, "Well, you're not going to." They've gone and taken a job that's same as yours, and they're paying $10,000 more. So now they've gone. So that's your loss. That's their gain.
I'm remembering back to when I used to do recruitment and selection in the public service, and you'd get in all these candidates and you'd have all your selection criteria, and you'd go through this entire process, and everybody would have exactly the same experience, and you'd pick the top person at the end. You can't really do that with that process, can you? It's kind of like it's sequential as they come in. The first one comes in. If they're meeting everything, you're going to offer it to them and stop. If you're not happy with them, you're going to keep going until you find the person you are happy with. It's almost a sequential process rather than a collective process. Have I heard that right?
Yeah.
That's right. And
I think as well, Brenda, to your point, the tables have turned. So it used to be, you know, employers interviewing a bunch of candidates, and you're really lucky to be able to get a job. And the tables have turned, and now it's the candidates are interviewing the employers. Like, and you're lucky to get someone really talented and a perfect fit for you. So, you know, it's a completely different world that we're recruiting in now.
Interesting.
I'd love to jump in just there 1 second, because I do a bit of charity work for this company called Project Displaced, and it's basically training people on how to find a job. And when I tell them, I say, you have the power now, that blows their mind. They're like, what do you mean? Like, because they're so used to the client or the company going, we're the best, you should come and work for us, and you know, we're going to choose you. Well, you know, I say to people, have confidence when you're going into an interview, and this has always been the same. It's just been the way that we've been taught, is that it's like they're interviewing you. It's not. It's you're interviewing them more so than anything else. You know what the job is. You've seen the job advert. You already know what it is. Now it's your chance to go in there and interview them properly, have 10 questions ready, and interview them and find out whether that's the place you want to stay for the next year, 2 years, 3 years, or whatever it is. And it blows their minds. They're kind of like, I can't do that. I can't go that. Yes, you can, because they're going to be begging for you to come, and you might have 4 or 5 different options, and you don't really want to chop and change. So it's about taking that power.
A completely different mindset. And I guess the next couple of questions, which I'm going to throw at you, Bobby, are about the actual advert. And the ad shows the salary. Well, that's fine. I think we can skip that one. We kind of established we needed to know what salary we're going to ask. But your ad speaks to the candidate. Tell us about how you make an ad speak to the candidate. And I'm guessing this is going to be another marketing 101 answer. But
it is. It is. Like traditionally, I used to write recruitment ads. It used to have a bit of blurb about the company, more about the company. Then it was about the company. Then it was about the skills that you needed, and then responsibilities. And then at the bottom, this is what you're going to get. Now we've totally changed our job adverts around. It's the top part is obviously a brief about the business, because they need to know what the position is. But then it's about what you're going to get straight away. This is what you're going to get straight away, because it's important for the candidate to realize that they're important. The important information is at the very top of it. So talking about, flexibility, if you're going to offer flexibility, if you're offering work from home, explain what that is. It's going to be 2 days a week. It's going to be this. We're always reviewing our salary. We want to, make sure you get paid the most. And, you said about putting salary in. So many clients don't want to do that because they think it's going to cut out people. Well, it is, but there's no point in cutting them out at interview stage. You may as well cut them out now, so they're not wasting anyone's time. And it's important because everyone else is going to be advertising their salary. And this is where it's important for you then to be competitive around that. There's no point hiding behind it and going, okay, well, it'll work out when we get to the interview stage because they're going to take the job when we offer them. Well, they're not, because they're going to be going to 10 different interviews, which has never happened before. So the competition around the job adverts is really important to look at that when you post your job advert, see what's around it, because that's what's the competition, that's where they're going to go and apply. And if they're offering $10,000 more or showing the salary, then you need to be competing with that, or else you're not going to get the best people.
So that probably, you mentioned flexibility there, and I think you've talked about this a little bit already, Jessie. I'm going to get you now to kind of wrap up by talking about what it is as an employer that, let's talk about flexibility and what that might look like, and thinking about outside the box things, but also what are the kinds of things that make a really great employer? What are the things that, because a lot of people, I mean, there's some statistics, Katie, I think you shared them a while back in a post about salary is not necessarily the most important thing. I mean, you've mentioned that several times, Bobby, about the salary, and clearly if you're looking at an organization that's 90,000 there and 60,000 here, that's going to have to be a bit of a game changer. But there are there are a lot of people who will choose a job for more than just the salary. So Jessie, do you want to just tell us about what a great organization needs to look like and be like and behave like?
It's that C word again. So it's culture, and I think that, I've seen people leave a job for an extra 10 grand, or if they're unhappy, you offer them a pay rise and they don't last more than 6 months, because all the reasons that they're unhappy, they're still going to be unhappy 6 months later. So it's about making sure that I think it's all about leadership and making sure people don't leave jobs, they leave leaders. When they leave bad managers and bad organizations, and a fish does rot from the head. We've seen it numerous times. So if you've got a healthy culture, where people want feedback, and they want to feel like they're contributing to the greater good. They want clear, career paths, and to know that they're achieving and that what they're doing. So, they want something clear and to feel like they're doing good in their work as well. But just to have a really healthy culture where they feel valued, and, they can bring up issues and there's empathy going on, and all the great leadership attributes that many people talk about. That's where you can make a difference, because, it's not just about getting the recruitment right. Once you've got them, you need to be able to retain them, right? And you are not going to be able to retain them if you've got an unhealthy, toxic culture. They're not going to stay very long because there's a million jobs out there. So, making sure you do everything you can to have a great workplace culture will help you to retain those employees. And it isn't just about salary. that's not why a lot of us, maybe it'll attract you in the first instance, but it won't make you stay.
Katie, I noticed you put a couple of comments in the chat box, and I'm sure this is an area that you're really interested in as well. So do you have anything to add to that about creating that great workplace environment where people want to stay?
Yeah, look, I think Jess has hit the nail on the head. And in terms of, I just wonder, and I think Bobby, both of you will be able to answer this question, is that a lot of workplaces now are offering all these add-ons. Let's just call them add-ons, a gym membership, all those, well-being things. How long is a piece of string, and how much can they offer until it doesn't work anymore? And when the market comes back to becoming a bit more employer, related, bit more of an employer related, and the supply and demand balances out, what's going to happen then? Because if you take something away, that's probably the worst thing, as we know.
Yeah.
I think it's a hard question because every business is so different, every person is so different. I had a great manager a few years ago, and when he first started, like I'd been there for 2 years, he came in, he was HR manager, and he said, "What do you want?" I wasn't leaving or anything. He said, "What do you want out of this? What do you want?" And I said, "Oh, I want a secure job. I'd like to learn something. I wouldn't mind a pay rise every 6 months. I wouldn't mind every Friday off." But then he knew what I wanted. And so then he was be able to go and help me get that. And I think we've got to ask the employees, what will make you stay, even if you're not thinking of leaving, what's going to make you stay more long term, so you can catch that problem today rather than in 6 weeks, 6 months time. If the candidate's going, "Oh, we'd like to work from home every Friday," well, then that's what you've got to do for that person to not look for work, another job in 6 to 12 months. There's having that communication and working out what is best, what the employer wants.
I love that,
Employee.
asking a question. And it doesn't necessarily have to be about giving everybody the same things. If you're actually asking that question and creating a culture where everybody's valued and everybody's needs are valued. Yeah, really interesting. Is there anything, I think we've got to the end of the checklist. So Jessie and Bobby, was there anything you wanted to add? And then if we're finished with that, then I know I've seen we appear to have something like 20 odd questions in that chat box. So we'll kind of wrap up the main part of the process, and then we can let our audience turn their mics on and we can go start answering questions. And that will be the end of the recording. I don't actually record that question part. So was there anything else you wanted to talk about before we wrap up? Bobby, Jessie, Katie?
I think I put in there, you want your employees, your existing employees, to be able to sing your praises as an employer. So, it's really important that it's not all fabricated in the job ad that you put up there, because once the candidate does a search on Glassdoor or something and reads these horrible reviews that it's an awful place to work, you've lost the candidate anyway. So, the making sure that it is a great place to work is going to make a huge difference and going to make you attractive as an employer of choice.
So the other thing is, what are the components of a good EVP? And Peter's just answered in the chat box. This starts with culture, but what other things? We'll put the C word. What other things do you think need to be part of a good employee value proposition in order to attract the right people at the right price to your business?
First of all, what does EVP stand for? I've never heard of it.
Employee value proposition.
Oh, okay, right, cool. Yeah, for me, the biggest, I can only go back to when I was an employee, and I look back, and the best managers I had communicated well with me. They sat down with me, they spoke about, what do I want out of this? And I mentioned that before. And so many places I've worked before never did that. And so it felt like they didn't care. I was just a cog. And that was fine if that was what I was meant to be. But, there's so many better ways of doing things. And sometimes it's just having a conversation with that person, maybe on a fortnightly basis, monthly basis. We should be having one-to-ones anyway. And we should be just till we can stop those problems happening. So, first of all, get your managers to speak to your current employees. Do you have any issues at the moment? Oh, yeah, actually, I'm looking to leave because I hate working in the office. Okay, well, let's try and sort that. Well, if I can't sort that, then that person's going to leave at some point. At least you can put something in place. There's so many people hide behind it because they're scared of having that conversation. But all that happens is they just turn up one day with a resignation letter, and sometimes they don't even come back because they go, tomorrow's my last day, I'm not coming back. And all of a sudden, you could have stopped that 6 months ago or 6 weeks ago if you just had that conversation of how you're going. Is there anything we can do to make it better for you here? And some people are going to go, no, it's totally fine, I love it. But then, you still, it's communication is the key. And I say this to a lot of business owners, it's not an employee-employer, it's partnership. You're in partnership. So, if you're married, got a girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever it is, it's the same kind of thing. You're in a partnership now. It's not, you must go and do this. It's having a conversation with them to work out how to keep those people, because they're a partner of your business. And sometimes they have such great knowledge and they leave and you don't realize how important they were until you go, oh, who was doing that? Oh, David was doing that.
The Stop the Noise webinar series is brought to you by the Better Business for Good Strategic Partner Network, on a mission to ensure every small business owner has access to the knowledge, resources and support they need to succeed.